Thank you very much, Katie, for coming, or for allowing us to come into your home and interview you. It's one of the first, I think, long sit-down interviews you've done on camera.
Yes, it's my pleasure, David.
Thank you. First of all, what is your name? Is it Katie Wright, Katie Hildebrand?
It's Katie Wright. I never actually changed my name. So Katie Wright is really the way I am known.
And your son is?
Christian Hildebrand.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your son, Christian. Where was he born and his first couple years of life?
Christian was born right here, Columbia Presbyterian, uptown.
He was your first child?
He's my first child. You know, contrary to these ridiculous assertions that I've read about maternal and paternal age, I was 32 as my husband was 33. And he, you know, it was a wonderful, easy pregnancy. No, nothing really unusual. And he was breech, so I had to have a C-section. But, you know, a beautiful, healthy 6.5-pound baby. And, you know, he was just wonderful. But he breastfed wonderfully and was a thriving, gained weight. He hit all his milestones on or before the schedule. Landon would be following it in the books about, you know, what were the appropriate milestones. And
did that include affection and eye contact?
Oh, yeah, so affectionate, so loving, big smiles, you know, at 6 weeks, and recognizing all the people in his life. His first word was kitty cat. He loved our cat. He immediately bonded tremendously with my mom. Such a loving, you know, normal little boy.
And when was he born?
August 31st, 2001.
2001. Mm-hmm. We'll go back in a minute and talk about if you've researched his vaccination schedule and vaccine content. But what was his, was he vaccinated normally? Or?
Well, you know, I had no idea that he was vaccinated without my knowledge or consent at the hospital, as is routine.
How is that possible?
It's mandatory, the Hep B virus.
They did not tell you?
They didn't even tell me or ask me. And later I found out that they are not required to do so, so I was very angry about that. Because he was healthy, but he was still 37 weeks, and it seems ridiculous, and it makes no sense. Anyways, yeah, so, yeah.
And then he was vaccinated 2 months and 4 months and 6 months?
Yeah, right on schedule. I followed the doctor's schedule rigidly. I was terrified of doing something wrong and that he would be sick because I did not follow the schedule. And I trusted her, which, you know, when he was 2 months old was the worst time. He got 6 vaccines in one visit. And typically, and I wasn't aware as much, there wasn't like 6 vials. They're the combination vaccines, which of course are among the least safe.
But he got through those shots okay?
Yeah, no, but he didn't really wasn't okay. We got home and he was and then of course I gave him a big dose of Tylenol. And then he was screaming like somebody was killing him for 12 hours. And he had a fever of 104. And I called the pediatrician and I said, I'm having some horrible reaction and what do I do? And she just said, keep giving him more Tylenol every 4 hours, keep giving him more Tylenol. And then I put him in an ice bath. She suggested ice baths, and that was horrible. And I'm a very independent person and a parent, but I called Andreas, I called my husband after a few hours, and I was like, this is crazy. I don't know, maybe I should go to the emergency room. I don't know what to do. And I needed him to come home, and he came home, and we tried everything, more ice baths, you know, walking, playing, trying to get him to sleep, nothing, eating, drinking, breastfeeding. He wouldn't do anything for that entire time except scream. Screams, and then he just passed out after 12 hours. And so then I went back to my pediatrician after that, and she assured me that was, you know, maybe more of the extreme, but a normal reaction and nothing to be concerned about. And it's amazing to me to this day that I believe that, and yet I did, and we continued vaccinating him.
And After that episode, did you notice anything different, or did he seem to recover?
More touchy, and anytime we went to the doctor's office, it was a nightmare. Going to the doctor's office was a nightmare.
Okay.
Nightmare.
And then when did you really start to notice serious trouble with him?
When he was 2, he started losing language, and he would look at me with these blank looks. We would go frequently to an aquarium near my house, and he'd be like, look, there's the seals. He was very excited. Look, there's the seals, and look, there's the fish, and look. And then I started to feel it was like really quiet. And it wasn't like when you're normally with a 2-year-old, there's a lot of chit-chat. And I had a baby at that time, and often I remember being like, Christian, I want to hear the baby. I want to, you know, and then after a while I noticed I was only hearing the baby. I wasn't hearing any more words, or then I had to elicit them from him, being like, what's that, or what are you doing, and I just noticed him like looking off into space and not being with me as much. And then the tantrums, of course, started, and they were frightening, like any parent of an autistic kid knows, and for no reason, just hurling himself on the ground, screaming and becoming red and blotchy and just hysterical isn't even enough of a word. Then he became like obsessed with milk, whole milk, and we would just keep giving him more and more bottles of milk. And I noticed that we were doing anything just to keep him quiet, and he was up to like 12 bottles of milk a day. And that was what we thought was, you know, the way to calm him down. And he wasn't eating much anymore, and then the dark circle started, and the rash. He had this rash all over his face, and then diarrhea. But cognitively, it was a very swift downward spiral. He had 1,000 words. He was conversational, very loving. He would get on the telephone and pretend to call people, and he and my mom would make plans. And when I tell him my mom was coming, he'd run out of the house, he'd run down the driveway, and then he'd want to drive the car with her. And yeah, and then it disappeared so quickly. And then that was gone, and then all his physical problems, like, just started, you know, worsening dramatically.
What about the language? He went from 1,000 words to just a few, or
like 100. Like just to get his I want Baba. That was the one. I want Baba. I want Baba. I want cookie.
Mommy, don't go.
Mommy, don't go. Don't go. Don't go.
But he wasn't saying anything like he used to.
Nothing. And his pretend play was gone completely. Like he loved Barney, and he would get Barney and be like, look at this, Barney. Do you see the tractor, Barney? And he'd be reading a book to Barney, and all that was gone. And I remember feeling like a lunatic, like I was carrying Barney around trying to, like, look, Christian, look, I'm showing Barney. And it just was gone. And we went to go see a developmental pediatrician after like a 2-month wait, and I could immediately sense from what she was asking that it was autism, immediately. Christian was diagnosed in February 2004. Okay. We pursued ABA therapy and speech therapy and OT, which were all helpful in their own ways, but Christian continued and RDI therapy, which was wonderful, but Christian continued a very swift decline because he was so physically sick.